Okay, so I think we have all four panelists in here. Yep, I think so. So let's get started. Um, Welcome everyone to the online panel on minority groups in Pakistan, held by Global Human Rights Defense. After the success of the SOS Colombia Flash panel, we deemed necessary to arrange this forum of discussion to raise awareness about the human rights violations that minority groups are suffering in Pakistan on a daily basis. Ethnic and religious minorities face rampant discrimination at all levels of society in Pakistan, from job opportunities to being explicitly targeted by legal provisions. Indeed, these minority groups struggle to get jobs, to be treated equally by the educational system, and to be respected and helped by state authorities. Especially concerning are the blasphemy laws, a set of provisions within the Pakistani Penal Code that excessively targets religious minorities and contribute to the segregation of the Pakistani society. In addition to their discriminatory nature, accusations under blasphemy laws are highly inflammatory due to their low evidentiary threshold and their misuse to settle disputes over personal affairs. Moreover, women from religious minorities are being discriminated in Pakistan on sex grounds and on religious grounds. Indeed, it is estimated that every year 1,000 women and girls from religious minorities are kidnapped, forcefully converted, and sold off to their kidnappers. Accordingly, this panel brings together four prominent human rights activists familiarized with the atrocities that minority groups in Pakistan are currently undergoing. In so doing, the panel is divided into three parts. During the first part, my colleague will ask a question specifically directed to each panelist. When the first panelist is done answering the questions, we will move to the next panelist and so on. During the second part, my colleague will ask questions to lay down a common ground for debate in hopes of contributing to a debate among all the panelists. In this sense, whichever expert wants to answer the question, he may do so. During the third part, the experts will be answering questions from the audience. To this end, we strongly encourage everyone to type their questions in the chat to their panelists throughout the whole panel, so we can pick them up for part 3. It is now time to introduce the panelists and heartily welcome them into this panel. To begin with, Mr. Naveed Walter. He has devoted his career to promote and protect human rights globally, including the European Parliament and the United Nations. This led him to win internationally recognized awards, such as the Human Rights Award on Human Rights Day by Global Human Rights Defense in 2017, and the award he received by the United Nations after the speech he gave at the United Nations Security Council, slamming violence in the name of religion. While always being ready to expose human rights violations in the international community, he has always placed his focus on marginalized communities in Pakistan. As a result, he founded the organization named Human Rights Focus Pakistan in 1994 to protect and empower minority groups in Pakistan through, for instance, providing free legal aid for access to justice to the victims of human rights violations in Pakistan. Mr. Chandan Sarkar. Professor Chandan is a leading human rights activist from Bangladesh. Inspired by the atrocities that he had seen occurring to marginalized communities during his childhood in his hometown, Maniganj, he started speaking out for voiceless people, disseminating human rights violations of minorities through numerous publications and contributions to newspapers such as News Bharati. He firmly advocates for human rights protection as the chairman of the Research and Empowerment Organization, a non-profit human rights organization that works to raise the voices of those unheard through empowerment opportunities, fact-finding missions, or legal assistance. He's also coordinating the South Asia team in Global Human Rights Defense. Mr. Watson Gill was born in Karachi, Pakistan, and has been living in the Netherlands for the past 26 years. Firmly devoted to the protection of human rights worldwide and especially committed to the safeguard of human rights of Christians, he founded the Overseas Pakistani Christian Alliance, the OPCA. This organization is a non-profit organization founded as an initiative from the Pakistani Christian community in Europe that aims to raise voice for the Christian community and heard in the main human rights gatekeepers. In so doing, OPCA seeks to support persecuted Christians in Pakistan and to effectively highlight injustices against Pakistani Christians through the dissemination of information and lobbying in international forums. Last but not least, Mr. Laku Luhana has been a strong advocate for rights movements of Sindhi people for more than 5 decades. He has been an ardent campaigner for human rights in Sindh and in Pakistan. He's a regular speaker at many international events, including the United Nations sponsored forums in Geneva and the European Parliament. He currently holds the position of General Secretary of the World Sindhi Congress, a leading human rights organization that advocates and protects human rights of the Sindhi people. Sindhi people are currently facing severe human rights abuses in Pakistan, such as arbitrary arrests, enforced disappearances, and extrajudicial killings. I will now give the floor to my colleague Aimee Linna, who will be asking the questions to the panelists.
Thank you, Sergey. Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to our panelists. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, the first question is for Mr. Gill. Mr. Gill, lately, there has been an increase of violent attacks towards Christian nurses in Pakistan. These are often motivated by blasphemy accusations from the Muslim colleagues in the hospital. Is there a plan of action from the OPCA to protect these nurses, and what do you and your organization think about the situation?
Hello. First of all, thank you very much for having me in your panel. My name is Watson Gill, and my English is not so well, but I hope you will understand that. Yes, we are not silent here. We are raising our voice against what is happening in Pakistan with our daughters, our sisters. As you know, the last especially some 1 or 2 years are more worse for our daughters. Blasphemy laws and forcibly conversion, this is raising day by day. And what we are doing here, we are planning a protest in front of a Dutch Parliament. Also, in this month, 24th of July, we are planning a big protest in front of European Parliament, and we will raise a voice for those nurses who are facing false accusation against them. And I hope we are inviting all peoples all over the Europe and also UK. So we are raising voice because we have no other way to go and ask justice. Pakistani government is not listening us. We wrote many times petitions and submitted to the Pakistani embassies, but we have not changed any. We have not seen any changes from Pakistani government. So we have to ask to the Dutch Parliament or to the European Parliament to take action. And like last month, I think they passed a resolution for GSP plus status for bounding against Pakistan. So we are asking European Parliament to must talk with the Pakistani government to stop these kind of injustice against our women. Yes, thank you.
Of course, thank you. And you just mentioned that you have been doing a lot of work with the European Parliament and the Dutch Parliament and such powerful institutions such as the European Union. How has your experience been in lobbying with these actors and to promote the human rights of Christian Pakistanis? Has it been difficult to get their attention? And do you think they have been sufficiently helpful in promoting the aims of your organization? And what do you think would be the most helpful action that these organizations can take to protect the human rights of Pakistani Christians and minorities in general?
I think in this case, we are lucky because whenever we ask appointments with the Dutch parliamentarians or the European parliamentarians, we got a positive reaction. We had many time meetings with the Dutch or European Parliament members, and many times we saw a change. I can give you an example. For example, in 2014, when the GSP Plus was granted to the Pakistani government, I was the part of that meeting where in that parliament, but the European Parliament member, Mr. Peter van Dalen, was also the part of that meeting. And I asked to the European Parliament members to please stop the GSP Plus status for Pakistani government or bound with the rights of the minorities, because this is injustice we are facing in Pakistan. And Mr. Peter van Dalen promised us then he will discuss with the parliament members. And now we see after 6 years, Pakistani or European Parliament have passed a resolution. And also, many times we ask raised voice in Dutch Parliament for Asia Bibi, and also we ask Dutch Parliament for Christian asylum seekers in Netherlands, and we saw the changes. So I can say that our voice and our struggle is working, and we are very happy to see these changes, especially in the Dutch Parliament and also the European Parliament. And just last week, 2 weeks ago, we present a petition to the Dutch Parliament against our daughters, the Christian girls possibly converted into Islam. So the Dutch Parliament has promised us that they will make a meeting, and they will talk with the Pakistani government. And we hope the OPC is doing great job, and especially GHRT is also helping us in that forum. And we will, you will see in 24th of July, we will stand outside the European Parliament. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope that progress goes amazing. Now I wanted to give the floor to Mr. Walter, who joined a little bit late in the meeting and he missed his introduction sadly, but welcome, Mr. Walter. I wanted to ask you, Human Rights Focused Pakistan provides free legal aid to the victims of discrimination on religious grounds. This also encompasses blasphemy accusations. However, we know that in blasphemy accusations, they're not only dangerous in legal means, so for example, the possibility of a death sentence, but they're also highly inflammatory outside the legal proceedings. So for example, the blasphemy accusations often lead to extrajudicial violence, like mob lynchings of not only the accused, but also their relatives. Therefore, we would like to know, how has your organization handled the situation of the relatives of the victims that you provide free legal aid to? And is there a strategy or a plan to protect the relatives or even the accused themselves from this social violence that is happening around those cases of blasphemy?
Thank you very much, Emelina and Serge and GHRD for such a great opportunity to raise the issues, and time to time we get together and raise issues, and not only through Zoom, but in person. A lot of meetings we conducted together and raised voice during lobbying, advocacy, and working on the ground in Pakistan. And regarding blasphemy issues, it's such a sword which was not only hanging, but it's cutting the heads of people since 80s. And you can imagine from 1987 to 1987 to 2017, 75 extrajudicial killings and murders had been happened due to just blasphemy issues. The communal attacks, the colonies burning, and the other deaths and the assassinations, that are different. But just due to blasphemy issues, 75 people have been killed. And during blasphemy, it's really, as you've spoken, it's not only a legal matter, because it's due to biased attitude and behaviors, and the people who having the personal grudges and conflicts with individuals and groups belonging to minorities, actually they do the actions in shape of blasphemy issues. They just elect falsely, and you can imagine that there is not a single case have been proved until now that anybody was accused and was judicially punished for whatever the life imprisonment or hanging or any other issue legally. But extrajudicial killings during court trials, during prisons, at homes, in families, their relatives, communities, and even the whole community. If a Christian is accused, the whole Christian community become accused. The example, recent example of nurses, the nurses of Faisalabad were not only accused, but nurses of Lahore was also accused, and there were a church who was possessed by the other nurses. If the Hindus become victimized for blasphemy, the all Hindus become accused and they relate to the India. And if Christians come to accuse, they relate to Europe and America. So the blasphemy issues, when some people said that it's an issue of not only Christians but Muslims, but the difference is when the Christian accused, the whole community become accused and attacked. And when the Muslim become accused, the individual become accused. So this is a matter, a serious matter, and it should be repealed. And as the European Parliament given some good statement and conducted good event regarding Emmanuel and Kausar and some other peoples, and overall there should be a good movement by this platform to repeal such blasphemy laws, and also there should be some procedural amendment for shortly, because if we start from the procedural amendment, that could also be very helpful in this situation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to ask you something about the threats to human rights activists in Pakistan, because your organization conducts fact-finding investigations for human rights violations. So how has that risk for human rights activists affected the workings of your organization? Has it been made harder or more dangerous to collect the information and be able to raise awareness on the issue?
The fact-finding, documentation, field visit, mission trips, these are the actually part of the activities, part of the human rights work. If we having a good data and the facts on the ground, that's mean we can present it not only in legal matters in a court, but also for the international lobbying advocacy efforts, and we have done in the past. And for example, we submitted the reports to United Nations and UPR sessions and with international NGOs. So these data are always very helpful, and many organization and international lobby always acknowledge us for our data. Because if you having a good data, that's mean you can go ahead with the direct information. So during fact findings, we facing a lot of challenges, not only from the perpetrators, but from the line departments, but from the some state departments, and the people always feel us not good during fact findings, and our teams have been threatened for multiple times, and even the fact finding team vehicle have been followed for many times. There are many stories when our team, when personally I have been followed by some people and even stopped by some people. Either they were state departments or either they were the non-state actors. But the work is continue, and the threats, we just taking it is a part of a job. And because if we don't do the fact findings, that means we having not a good data, we having not a direct information. So the challenges will also be continue, but the work will also be continue. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for your contribution with those missions. Now I wanted to give the floor to Professor Sarkar and ask you about the message that you have shared on your organization's website, the Research and Empowerment Organization. it mentions that the youth is a really important driver for social change in Bangladesh with respect to minority rights. And as we discussed before, you're also working as a coordinator for Southeast Asia team of the Global Human Rights Defense, which includes Pakistan. So I wanted to ask you kind of a comparative question. Do you think that the youth in Pakistan has also an important part to play in social change in that country, even with all the censorship that they face, and even while being raised in such communities that uphold the violations of minority rights? And how do you think that those obstacles can be overcome through the youth?
Thank you very much, Abilina Sharafi, and thank you very much, GHRTV Chairman Shital sir. Yes, we do believe GHRTV as a youth team, those who are working in Pakistan for a long period of time. In Pakistan, 63% of youth who have aged 16 to 29 years old. Even in Bangladesh, also in a below 15 years to 24 years old, 54% youth. We are optimistic and positive-minded. Youth are the main driving force, and actually, they are actually driving force of the positive change in the world.
Well, thank you very much. Now I wanted to ask you, you have written excessively about the current situation of Hindus in Bangladesh. In fact, in one of your articles that you published in News Bharati, you argue that the current situation of Hindus in Bangladesh can be traced back to the acts on ordinances promulgated by Pakistan during its war with India, in which India and Hindus were considered enemies of the state. Then, when Bangladesh became independent from Pakistan, it adopted some of these acts that were causing detrimental effects to the Hindu community instead of repealing them. So therefore, it could be argued that Bangladesh followed in the past Pakistan's steps, at least to some extent, with regards to dealing with the Hindu community within their territory. Now, do you think that Hindus in Bangladesh and in Pakistan are in a comparable situation? And would you still say that discrimination towards Hindus in Pakistan or in Bangladesh are the result of Pakistan's wars with India in the past?
Yes, you see, Indo-Pakistan's actually, in fact, were in 1965, and duration that this war was only for a 6 month, April to September. And then Pak government passed an ordinance actually that assets left behind by the people who left in India in 1965 and in 1971 are known as the enemy properties. And this was the most barbarian, the state discriminations against Hindus. And the laws was as it is until in 1965 to 2006. Even for a total of 1.2 million actually households or 6 million people are affected. And it would be 2.6 million acre land actually depossessed by this barbarian anti-constitutional act. And it is true that is the straight discriminations against the Hindus. Although our honorable PM Sheikh Hasina did a lot of things, demolish this black law to the Vested Property Act. But I just would like to say for the minorities dealing issues, Pakistan is the worst. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Dr. Luhana and ask you about your the protest that was recently held by your organization in The Hague against the land grabbing that is currently taking place in Sindh. And during your speech, you argued that hundreds of Sindhi people are being forced to leave their hometown as all of their jobs and resources are being taken away by the Pakistani state and its army. It also has been argued that the authorities are claimed to be intimidating and falsely accusing those who refuse to leave, resulting in the state forcibly displacing Sindhi people from their homes. Could you please provide a brief background on the situation in Sindh? And how is the World Sindhi Congress trying to help? What is your strategy to help the forcibly displaced? And whether or not you are in contact with the Pakistani government? sorry, Dr. Lohana, you are muted. I can help you with that.
No, that's fine.
Okay,
So
perfect.
first and foremost, we are grateful to Global Human Rights Defense to give us this opportunity. And thank you, Emelina. Now, I generally say the voice raised for the voiceless people is the sacred voice. GHRT is trying to bring the people together to raise the voice for the voiceless people. And honestly, the conditions in which we are living, these are heart-wrenching conditions. Coming back to your question of our protest, we held a protest in London, and that was opposite 10 Downing Street, which is the residence of British Prime Minister. On 6th June, on the same day, we held this protest in solidarity of the protest which was happening on the same day on 6th June in Sindh, in Karachi. And here we are maybe about 50, 60 people, but in Sindh and Karachi, there were thousands of people. And what was the reason? There was just an example, which was Barrier Town. Now, the occupation of land doesn't stop at Barrier Town. Barrier Town is just one example. Barrier Town spans over 46,000 acres of land. And do you understand what 46,000 acres of land is? 186 kilometers square. And 186 kilometers square, there are 10 or 11 countries in the world that are smaller than 186 kilometers squares of the land. And very, very interestingly, in 2017-18, in 2018, there was a case that went to the Supreme Court, the highest court, and they came with the verdict. The lands acquired, occupied by Barrier Town are illegal. They have been occupied by fraud, deceit, and force. This was the verdict. And still after that verdict, then they appointed an implementation bench, and they say, yeah, this has to be implemented, and the land should return to the indigenous people, the people who are the real owners of that land. The implementation bench, what they said, that they fined Barrier Town 460 billion rupees. That is about $3 billion roughly. And they said this money, because they have done illegal thing, they have done fraud, they have done it by force and deceit, therefore they are fined. But this money will go to the Supreme Court. I mean, can you believe that somebody snatches your property and then he is fined because it is illegal work, and then that money or whatever the compensation goes to, and even that they haven't paid. And they didn't stop that land. They started occupying the adjacent lands. And it is not hundreds of people who are displaced. There are hundreds of villages. It is not only hundreds of villages. There are sites of sentimentally important historical importance. There are sites of ecological importance. And you, as people, learned people like you, panel sitting there, do you know that ecological habitats are not creating in days or years and centuries? They are created over sometime over hundreds of thousands of years. And they are being destroyed. And there's nobody in the system, because there isn't, honestly, we wouldn't like to touch that issue. But it is not only Barrier Town. The largest occupiers of lands, the most valuable lands of Sindh are in Karachi. It's not only the most valuable lands of Sindh, it is the most valuable lands of Pakistan are in Karachi. That is our capital of Sindh. You will be surprised, the largest occupier of these lands is Pakistani army. There is a Defense Housing Association city that is over 11,600 acres. There are 8 phases of defense built already. There are another 12,000, 13,000 acres of land. Then there are a lot of lands around Maleer Kent. The most, I mean, almost 60% of the most valuable lands of Karachi, they are owned by either and are occupied by force by Pakistani military and the paramilitary such as Rangers. They are not only that, the lands. They are taking the lands of schools, the recreation parks, and there isn't a law. Therefore, the Sindhi people, since then, there have been not one, there have been hundreds of protests across. And in retaliation, what they did a conspiracy. On the day when there was the largest protest on 6th of June, they burned one of the towers of Bahria town. And they say, look, this protest was violent. And so far, they have arrested 362, probably more. Today, when we will get the figures, there will be more people. But anyway, that is, I'm talking about 2 days. More than 360 people, they have been arrested. The scores of cases have been registered and they are under Anti-Terrorist Act. Means these people, and these are not cases against 1, 10, 100 people. These are, and there's not one case, there are tens of cases. Then these are cases about over 11,000 people. Have you heard of any other people raising the voice in a democratic manner, in a democratic fashion, in a democratic process, peaceful way? They are thrown in prisons. Leaders have been arrested. Most important workers have been arrested. They are being, their houses are surrounded on a 24 basis by intelligence agencies. So we are literally living in the Nazi era where, and that is the situation we are. And it is really very, very difficult situation. As World Sindhi Congress, we are sitting here. It is our first and foremost duty to stand with our people who suffer, who gone missing, who disappeared, who are arrested and tortured, who are stopped to raise their voice. And World Sindhi Congress, we are trying to everything that we can. And I tell you, following from the 6th June, on 18th of July, we are having a hunger strike in front of Pakistan High Commission to tell them, stop this, to tell the world to awaken the conscience of the international community. This shouldn't happen in the 21st century. This shouldn't happen. This is inhuman. We are human beings and should be allowed to live as a human beings on our motherland. So we would request all of you, you are great people, you are advocates for human rights. We really, really request you, we really, really beg you to stand by us in this one of the darkest periods in history. And thank you very much for once again. Thank you.
Of course, thank you so much. All of the actions that you've been mentioning are extremely powerful, like the hunger strike and the protests. I wanted to ask, for instance, the World Sindhi Congress recently reported on a resolution that was passed in the European Parliament, and it was urging EU member states to put pressure on the government of Pakistan not to violate minority rights and Sindhi rights. Now, how important do you think that the role of the international community is to the promotion of Sindhi human rights? Because we know the World Sindhi Congress is standing strong. We know there's human rights organizations that are also helping. But what is the role of the foreign governments and the foreign populations in stopping these atrocities?
Emilina, humanity has seen crisis. Even in recent history, you look at 20th century. You see World War I, you see World War II, there have been hundreds of conflicts around the world. And when in the cases where governments like Pakistan, they didn't care honestly, they don't. Say, for example, I wouldn't like to go in detail, but any of the perpetrators of these crimes that they commit against Sindhi people, against other people, not a single has been punished because on the basis that he committed crimes against humanity or he violated human rights. In that case, there is an international norm or law. In 2005, there was the World Summit in 2005 by our UN World Summit. And in 2005, that World Summit, that was the summit where largest number of heads of state participated. And they passed one thing that unanimously, they said no, and that is called R2 principle or international law relevance, that is called R2P, responsibility to protect. Those who cannot protect themselves in the countries where the perpetrators are the state, because at the end of the day, the first responsibility is the responsibility of the state to protect the human rights of its citizens. When they are perpetrating the atrocities, then it is the responsibility of the international community to protect the people. And world has done so in the past. We have seen. Coming back to European Union, this was a significant advancement to pass that resolution. But since it has been going for very, very long, and they should be, of course, our people suffer enormously. That is beyond belief. We are living because the fundamental basis of the Charter of United Nations human rights was, if there is no human rights, there won't be justice. And there won't no justice, there won't be peace. And people are suffering. Resolution is really very good step, but it should go far. What other proof? What more proof? What more facts? What more data? What more analysis European Union need to stop supporting and GSP plus? That should stop, because there is a fundamental underlying, because GSP plus is in European Union, things happen according to the constitution, according to the law. And the law is that those countries who are given GSP plus status, they should ratify 23 fundamental human rights. There are rights to life, there are minority rights, the rights to liberty and all. And to be honest, Pakistan, we can, without any doubt, they know that. They know, they probably will have more information. They are violating literally every right that they should ratify and fulfill and oblige according those to be eligible to have the GSP plus status. It should stop, because they say, for example, in Pakistan, those people who suffer, they are raising their voice. They are carrying on against the odds. They are sent to prison, they're missing. Minorities suffer enormously. There's no one, nothing, not a single problem. Nothing happens. Whatever cases we raise, we cry here, but have we got any resolution? Therefore, the international community, it is their duty. It's not they are doing any favor. It is their responsibility to protect. Under they have signed that. Therefore, through this, and we should basically also increase our voice, that, and we should make them to understand. See, for example, recently, what happened as a result on the France something? Haven't they seen these videos and this venom pouring out and these protests again? What else do they need? And the situation would be worsen in the coming days because of the Afghanistan situation, because of how the Taliban situation will become really very, very unstable. Therefore, say, for example, there is a saying that if somebody is committing crime and if you don't stop it, you are partner in that crime. But if anyone who support them who are committing the crime, what would you say to them? The GSP plus status is giving Pakistan a benefit of 1.2 billion euros as a result of GSP plus status. And that is state that is violating every human right that is in the charter. So this is a very good step, but it should really go further to really make a difference. If we really want to make difference, because of course we are voiceless, we cannot do, but it will, will be a regional issue, how the religious fundamentalism is increasing. We are seeing the emergence of this in various European countries and all that. So, and the epicenter of all that is Pakistan. Stop supporting that. Every penny that to give them, every technology that you give them, every piece of equipment that is given to them goes against the help them to continue the human rights abuses of people like us, and it will eventually hurt those people who are supporting them. What we have seen in Afghanistan. So they should go further. Is not enough. That's our personal view. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Lohana, and thank you to all of the panelists for the individual questions. Now I'll pass the floor to Sergi to explain the second part of the panel.
Yes, so we are done now with part 1, and we're gonna move to part 2, in which Emilena is gonna ask a question, and whoever expert wants to take it, he may do so by unmuting himself, and hopefully there are no conflicts among panelists. Otherwise, I'll try to intervene to give the floor to each one of you.
Yes, thank you all once again. Our first question is, of course, regarding COVID-19, the most recent crisis that has impacted the entire globe. And in Pakistan in particular, COVID-19 has intensified discriminatory practices on religious grounds. There have been incidents in Balochistan where Shias have been targeted exclusively by quarantine measures as a result of their crossing of the Iran border. Additionally, there have been reports of Christians and Hindus being denied food rations by local NGOs. Have your organizations reported more human rights violations towards religious minorities in Pakistan amid the COVID-19 pandemic? And have your organizations adapted to the COVID situation in Pakistan, namely establishing new initiatives, providing more help to the affected people, or in any other measure that you would want to discuss? Feel free to respond, whoever wants to start first.
Yes, Human Rights Focus Pakistan worked on the ground and distributed not only the ration, but also conducted the awareness activities and campaigns to sensitize the people about COVID and its effects, and what the United Nations and health organizations asked to adopt such precautionary measures. During field work, there were many incidents when we saw that there is a discrimination with the minority people, and especially we saw in our town, where we having a main office in Pakistan, in Faisalabad, and there are the sanitary workers, and they are 90% of the total sanitary workers, the Christian sanitary workers. And even they having no hygienic kits, they having no safety equipments, they having no even gloves, and they were cleaning the whole city. They were doing the work to save the people, but on the other hand, they were not safe. So we started campaign. We asked to the local government to give them equipments. This is one example. There are a lot of examples. Some transgenders also came to our office, and they said that they having discrimination during COVID benefits and the other things the government distributing, but they having problems to get such benefits. And overall, the minority situation was not good. Even we saw and observed that some religious people attract to the minority poor people to come and convert, and they can give the ration. And I am not saying myself, there is a record. There are video virals where the religious people are saying that there are good initiatives. We are not only, they were saying that we are not giving the Russians, but we are converting to the minority people, the Christians, the Hindus, the other people into Islam. So you can imagine by this example. Thank you.
I would like to say something. First of all, I'm very enjoying this meeting because I'm learning a lot, because there are many genius and qualified peoples. Thank you very much again for having me in this meeting. As Brother Walter said, and I remember him, I think I met him in some years ago in the European Parliament. Exactly what he said, because during the COVID, many Christian peoples refused by the fanatic groups distribution ration, because they have to convert or they will get the food. So what we, as an OPCA, we also distribute a food packets in Karachi and also in Lahore, and yeah, because we have no enough fund, we doing on from our own pocket. So we also complain some Pakistani authorities, but they are always reluctant to take action against the perpetrators. So, but what we tried, we distribute rations, and it is happening if medicine distributed or food packet distributed, you have to convert into Islam, then you will get it. Thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to respond to the same question? We can move on to the next one if there's nothing to add. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for your contributions. The situation sounds very horrible and your organizations are helping very much. Our next question is regarding the rights of women as a minority group in Pakistan, which are constantly at risk with the patriarchal norms and the discriminatory gender culture in the country. And one of the practices that also prove that are forced marriages, which are also disproportionately affecting Christian and Hindu women, who are also a religious minority, not only a gender minority in Pakistan. And the problem doesn't seem to be getting better, with state authorities usually complicit in concealing such crimes. And what do you think needs to be done by actors within Pakistan or outside the country in the international community in order to finally stop these horrible human rights violations against Pakistani women? Has there been any initiatives from your own organization with regard to this problem that you would like to highlight?
Thank you, Evelina. Some friends have already given some figures. There is a generally, and this is from Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, and they say on average 1,000 girls are converted every year. In fact, we believe the actual number is significantly higher. I wish I can show you one just picture, if you don't mind.
Of course. Would you like to share your screen?
Yeah, just one thing. Share my screen, and then I just how to show you one picture and to understand that can you show this picture? Can you see this picture?
Yes,
Yep.
we can see it now.
This is the incident of March this year. The girl that is sitting, her name is Kavita. The guy that is sitting is Miyamitu. In fact, I've got the whole video, but I wouldn't show that. There are literally hundreds of people are surrounding her. Her date of birth, I'll show you the certificate. Can you see that this figure? Her date of birth is the 12th of December 2008. So on 7th or 8th of March 2021, she wasn't even 13. She was 12 years and 3 months old. And if you look at her, basically this picture, there were about a couple of hundred people surrounding her. There were like fanfare, and she's the only one, the child sitting on the ground. Can you see that? It really feels your heart to, if I show you the video, your heart will bleed, honestly. This child of 12 years sitting on the hundreds of people dancing, that, and this is not the exception, this is the rule. And I tell you one thing, that there is research from Christian Solidarity Worldwide, from Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, and from University of Birmingham on the forced conversions. Every girl, every child that goes, it leaves enormous pain and suffering and humiliation to all that who are related to her. But very, very sadly, the largest group that face and suffer the forced conversions are Hindus. And in Pakistan, 94 or 96% of Hindus are based in Sindh. And this is Delhi's routine. It occurs almost on a daily basis when someone, and there are many who even don't bother to report, because to date, what I'm saying, listen to me, the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan says that on every 1,000 girls are converted, it is estimated that out of these, there are about 67, 69% as Hindu girls. So say 600 girls. That is happening on a yearly basis. And to date, I re-emphasize, not a single perpetrators have been punished. And some of the girls, they're 10, 11 years old. So it includes most of the girls. Our research shows that most of the girls, over 80% of the girls are under 16. And there are 50% of the girls are under 14. That is, so you can understand these are children. And the pain and suffering, and nobody is there to. The judiciary, there's so much, the radicalization has made the situation and atmosphere so hostile that nobody comes. In spite of that, against the odds, in Sindh, there are a lot of protests happening on a regular basis whenever something happens. But it is the state policy, systematic policy, particularly in Sindh. They want to coerce the minorities to the extent that they leave. For example, at the time of partition in 1947, in Sindh, there were 29% Hindus. And now, in 1970, there were 9 or 10% Hindus. I'm talking about 1970, before 1971 war, 9% or 10%. And now they are only 6%. And to your surprise, one of the colleague who was in the panel, he said, those who left 1947, the Hindus, their properties were declared as enemy properties. Those people who were living there for thousands of years, because recently there have been DNA studies, and they found that DNA of some of these, they're thousands of years old, and they were declared enemy, and their properties were enemy properties, so they can be usurped. So to be honest, there was an attempt to pass a law to stop the forced conversion, only one purpose. They enter into lives of perpetual and lifelong slavery. Not only lifelong slavery, sexual slavery, but they are completely now severed from their families. Just imagine a child of 13-year-old or 12, not 13, 13 she will be in December, 12-year-old, she's married, and generally they are married to much older men, 40, 50, 60. And then there are studies that they don't stay, and then they're passed, they carry on. So they live the lives of perpetual sexual slavery and severed from their parents. Just imagine their lives, and not a single one. So there was an attempt, there was a law that was passed by in the assembly, but again, it never saw there was enormous pressure from the religious fundamentalists, and it wasn't signed finally. So the practice goes on, and we do not see, honestly. Okay, we will carry on raising the voice. We are carry on crying, nothing will happen, because this whole state is supporting religious fundamental. That is one of the main tool. And nothing will happen. Again, it is the responsibility of the international community to protect girls, these children. They're not even adolescents, they're children, honestly. It's their duty. And it is our duty, sitting outside those people, to get it done. And again, on even this basis alone, the GSP plus status should be withdrawn until unless there is a law enacted in Pakistan to criminalize, to convert the children. This 12-year child sitting in the foots of these hundreds of people. What this poor child. And when her parents tried to raise the voice, their house was attacked. They were beaten. So they cannot, after that, they have stopped raising even voice, because they know even the others could be kidnapped. Can you understand this hopelessness situation? And that's the situation we are. And therefore, responsibility of people like us is significantly higher than we understand. There should be pressure from international community, from UN, for example, UN Human Rights Council. They should stop the membership of Pakistan until these crimes against humanity stop. European Union should stop GSP plus, giving not only 1.2 billion euros, even a single penny. How can they do that? How can they do that? Why do they do that? That's the situation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Lohana. I can help with the screen sharing. Let's see if it works. Yes, now it works. Thank you so much for your contribution. Is there any one of the panelists that would also like to comment on the situation of women's rights? Mr. Walter?
Yeah, the women's situation in Pakistan overall is already pathetic, and the minority women became doubled, because being minority and being a woman. So in Pakistan, about 1,000 girls are victimized for abductions, forced conversions, and forced marriages. And during proceedings, when we followed these cases through courts, these are the other issues. The main issue, because of being minority, the other issue become when a girl is minor and we bring the case to court, the only way to bring the justice, to raise the issue, we having the courts. So when we bring the case to court, during court proceedings, unfortunately, the Islamic ideology having a different definition about the girl's majority. So they don't accept the NADRA database, the government database, the age of girl. They define by their own ideology. And the girls go with the culprits. There are a lot of examples. The problem is the Pakistani state having a religion. The most of the countries, they having no religion, but the state having a religion. The state religion is Islam. So the Article 2 of Pakistan said that Islam is a state of religion. But the Article 25 said that everyone is equal for the state. And the founder of Pakistan also said that everyone is equal. There is no issue politically, but in the personal matters, they having their own religion matter. But on the other hand, Article 41 said that the president cannot be any other minority, and the prime minister should also be a Muslim always. So there are many contradictions, and when the culprits come to courts and they stand in front of us, they having a lot of spaces in the constitution. And sorry to say, there are many examples when we saw the biased attitudes and behaviors, even by the courts, even by the police, even by the state. So where a person could go, where we can bring the cases of the minority girls. So the only way to raise issues and bring these issues on the international lobby and advocacy, European Parliament, United Nations, and stop. We will continue. We are raising issues to condition GSP plus with the minority rights, with the minority situation become uplift. And the day has come. So we hope that the minority women will also be protected in the future if we will continue. Thank you.
Yes, I think Professor Sarkam wanted to say
Yes.
something. Yep.
Yes, like I feel very, 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 very sad to say the word from Dr. Luhana. Yes, it is really, really very, very sorry feeling. Yes, Pakistan actually, you see, is the most unfortunate that after the partitions from the India, most of the rulers were army or army-backed government. What actually Ludhana also mentions, I really agreed. To establish their stand, they compromise and used actually religious sentiment as tools. GHRTV working in the field level in Pakistan. We know many youth organizations. Actually, I'm going for a little bit optimistic and positive because I heard from Lohana ji. So many organizations also working, and we know from the ground level, like youth teachers associations, interfaith harmony groups, many other youth groups want to abolish some text and increased hate. Actually, that is the peace against minorities in Pakistan. They try to abolish to increase the interfaith relations. Many youth groups have started interfaith workshops and dialogue, working with the positive thinking, fundamental rights, and highlighting Pakistani's rich culture and diversity. Also, in the near future, there is so many positive things. So we optimistic that is youth can, that is driving force. They will that is come forward. And thank you very much. And we just agree to it, Dr. Luhana, and very sorry what actually you heard from about Sindh and others. Thank you very much.
Yes, now we will proceed to part 3, where we read out loud the questions from the public. I think there's 2 so far. One is concerning the miserable situation in which Hindus are living right now in Pakistan. If someone wants to talk about it, there is no specific. Yeah, Dr. Lohana, please go ahead.
Basically, in my previous deliberation, I said that Sindhi Hindus, they make about currently 1.5 or 1.6% of population of Pakistan. And out of this, 94 or 96% of Hindus, they are based in Sindh. And there's a multifaceted attack and coercion. And it's not only forced conversions, which is really a more severe and heart-wrenching phase of this operation. Many other ways, the blasphemy, there's case of Professor Notan Lal, very famous, and attack on their properties. In this year alone, there have been 7 attacks, or 6 or 7 or 8 attacks on the places of worship. So that means roughly on average 1 per month. And then there are many other ways, because they are most vulnerable part of Sindhi society. And many are leaving. Say, for example, currently the population of Hindus in Sindh, official figures are 2.3 million. We believe this, we don't have anything to substantiate. We think they are about 4 million, because there are most of these, they live in very, very poor people who do not participate in census and all that. But on average, 20 to 30,000 people, they are migrating, leaving. And there are also systematic efforts in areas where there are significant Hindu minorities to state-sponsor religious extremism, opening of religious seminaries, creating an atmosphere, venomous atmosphere. So there is general state-driven policy to force Sindhi Hindus out of Sindh, because that is the part of general grand design to convert Sindhis into minority in their thousands-year-old and motherland. So it is very, very difficult, and there isn't any remedy. I tell you an interesting thing. There was a couple of cases which were really very, very high profile. One of these that is still, it is basically reverberates, and that is Rinkle Kumari's case that went to Supreme Court. In Supreme Court, she said in front of the Chief Justice of Supreme Court that I want to go with my parents. And that is on record. And still, and she said repeatedly. And then she said, go and get your statement record to the registrar. And she was crying, and she said the words that I wouldn't like to say here. And she said, they all are same, I wouldn't get justice here. So to be honest, we don't have, because we are simple, humble human rights workers, and we have been working. Honestly, we don't have any hope in that system. We don't know hope. Where the case goes to the Supreme Court in front of the Chief Justice of Supreme Court, and girl says openly in front of many people, in spite of all that pressure, people holding guns and all that, she says, I want to go with my parents. And if she's not allowed, what will you do? There's no other way except the international community to put their pressure. They can. European Union can do that. US can do that. UN, Human Rights Commission, UN can do that. And if they really mean it, they can get it done. They can get justice to those people who have been suffering. I mean, if you listen to their stories, honestly, if I would have brought one of the mother of their, you all will cry. That is the situation, and that shouldn't continue to be. This is the responsibility of entire humanity, of entire humankind to support these people. They don't have anywhere else to go in Pakistan. There isn't any door. There's no door. So that's the situation. Thank you, Sergey.
I would say a few words. What we learned that in Pakistan, we have religious discrimination, especially the girls from Hindu community or from Christian community are facing injustice in our society, and also from Supreme Court or High Court or lower courts. But I would take opportunity in this meeting that I can ask GHRD. We asked 24th of July protest in the Brussels. We cannot assure that we got permission or not. Maybe it will take a day or two, but we want, if possible, you can ask Pakistani Hindu community from Europe if they can also join us in Brussels, 24th of July, this month. But as confirmed that we can let you know, we have confirmation. Now we can ask if possible. GHRD is doing great job. And if possible, then they can ask our brothers and sisters from Europe, Hindu community brothers, they can also join us. Then we can make more strong protest in European front of European Parliament. May God bless you. Thank you. And my battery of my telephone also is about to finish. So I don't know. It will be finished. Okay, thank you.
May I say one thing? This is also time that we look within. We should ask ourselves that what else we could do, because at the end of the day, if, say, for example, we continue saying and talking and say, for example, protesting, but if it doesn't make difference to those people who suffer in numerous ways, for those for whom the lives have been made hell, forced conventions, enforced disappearances, hundreds of thousands of people displaced. If we cannot really make a difference for them, why we haven't been? What else we can do that could make really difference? So we need to think about our actions, our strategies, our formulations, that how we should go forward, and that can bring some change. And that's my view. And that would require, rather than this internal meeting of the human rights defenders, should come together and think about our what can we do, how that should be done. There should be a way out of this to bring some hope for these hopeless people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move on to the second question from the public, from Mr. Sital. And he's asking if it would be possible, if you think that all the minorities in Pakistan that are targeted for human rights violations could come together and protest together and form one big coalition. And do you think that that would be a more effective result and strategy for them to actually be heard?
I think I'm talking too much. That's not fair. It should be, I definitely support this, that there isn't any other way. Always a united effort and response is much more stronger and could bring some change, but later. But I wholeheartedly support that there should be united.
We also fully endorse this idea. We also fully endorse this idea, and to do work together. And there are many success stories we done in the past, and the recent European Parliament unanimously their initiative made impact. So of course, if we go ahead together, there will be some good results.
Thank you. Mr. Gill, you wanted to say something?
I just want to say that even we have many more problems as a Pakistani Christian. We are standing also with the Hindu community. But I would like to say that we are Pakistani. We are proud to be a Pakistani. We cannot say that any group or any organization, if they will go against the Pakistani solidarity or against Pakistan, then we will not stand with them. So please keep remember these things. We are standing with the all communities, those who are fighting their rights under the constitution or under the Pakistani umbrella. Thank you very much.
Yes, understandable. Thank you so much. We can move on to our final question from the public, which asks, what would your top 3 steps that the EU or other international bodies can take to help?
May I say again? Number one, stop GSP Plus status until they completely fulfill all the 23 human rights, number one. Number two, European Union should send regular fact-finding missions to observe the human rights abuses against minorities as well as the national minorities such as Sindhis and Kalots, including issues like disappearances and occupation of the resources and lands. Third, that not only European Union, but other countries, no aid until the human rights are not observed. Fourth, the human rights, for example, there are a number of human rights violations. They are not criminal in law of Pakistan. For example, forced conversion. There isn't a law. For example, enforced disappearances. There are many, many things which are. So, for example, blasphemy law. So they should be made, there should be constitutional law changes that make these violations of human rights should be criminalized in Pakistan. Until unless no aid, if no Pakistan doesn't observe human rights. And there should be regular visits by the European Commission, by UN, by US to observe the human rights situation. And until unless the aid to Pakistan should be stopped. That's mine.
Thank you so much. And would any other panelists like to comment on this question? Because we have a follow-up as well from the same attendee who is asking, do you think that political training of politicians of Pakistan in the EU would also be an effective way, kind of changing the mindset of policymakers?
I think it doesn't. I'm very, very sorry. I'm taking all this last. If somebody else wants to talk, I'm happy to talk. And I would be very brief because it's really very important to understand the political system of Pakistan. In Pakistan, politicians do not develop in the process. They are brought from above. And there are generations. In every you see, say, if his father was a politician in MNA, he carries, or even the current politicians. So they are part of this entire system and they benefit from it. They are beneficiaries. and they are part of that the system that systematically abuses the human rights. Therefore, okay, they will be happy to come to visit Europe and live here, and they will listen to you, but until unless there are fundamental political changes from within, from inside, and it is my personal view. I'm becoming a bit pessimistic. It will not change, because those who know the politicians of Pakistan, they for them the principle, I mean, and principle and honor and human rights, they just want power. They want their share, and they over the period of time, the system has become so corrupt that it has to change somehow, to bring some change, to bring some hope to the people by sending them to, okay, probably. But until unless there is an eye who are looking at them and telling them when they commit the crimes against humanity that this has been identified, the issues, they don't care honestly. I mean, these, for example, in Pakistan, there are a number of cases. A politician, his son was driving, he moved his car, over 6 people, they died, is free. And there are many, many cases. So it's really, over the period of time, they become so corrupt. But the boss, it is basically, it's a security state, and they want to bring anyone in politics, and they move. Say, for example, the same person that has moved over 20 years of time, every time with the, so it is really very important to understand who the politicians are. They are collaborators with the security establishment of Pakistan, who really rule the country. And I see very little hope in that. That's my personal view.
Actually, I want to add also something that regarding changing the mindsets of politicians and parliamentarians, there's need to change the mindsets from higher to lower and to the grassroots level. The European Parliament, the European Union, the international lobby, the international community, and the government of Pakistan, they must start the campaigns to change the mindsets of people. Because on the ground, there is an issue of biased attitudes and behaviors. There are so-called social norms where the minorities feel alone, feel biased, and faced biased attitudes and behaviors on daily basis. There are derogatory words which are using for minorities, which are using for Christians and Hindus. So the promotional material, awareness activities, sensitization of the parliamentarians, the leaders, and the grassroots level public, it should be changed, and it should be start a campaign. Then a change could be happened. If there are many amendments, there are laws, there are bills, who will implement? The police can implement. If somebody, some girl convert, so they all think that the girl is converted. So they asked to family that the girl became converted. So it's mean don't come again to the police station. So these are the mindsets. These are the assumptions. So how they could change the mindsets, the way to change the mindsets, that could be a strategy by sitting with European Parliament and international community. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Walter, thank you so much. Would any of the other panelists like to contribute to this question?
So if there are no other questions from the public or any other contribution to this question, I'm sorry, but we will need to end this panel as of right now. Just to say that it was an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much. thank you very much for everyone for attending, and especially Mr. Gill, Mr. Luhana, Mr. Walter, and Mr. Sarkam for raising such awareness of the current situation of Pakistan. Your work is truly admirable, really. Thank you very much again for your interesting opinions and the knowledge you provided through this panel. Have a nice evening to everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Gates. Thank you very much, Amelina. Thank you very much, Professor
Thank you
Chandan,
very much,
George.
GHRT,
Thank
and
you
for
very
the
much.
host.
Very kind of you. Thank you, GRT, and hope to be together to do something that could bring some change. And once again, very kind of you.
Yeah.
Lohana ji, we always with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all of you.
Thank you to everyone.
Thank you to you.
Thank you.